Welcome to The Venus Files.
I'm Carmen.
I'm Stephanie.
I'm Talia.
And we're back.
Yes, we are.
Happy May, y'all.
Yay!
Happy May. I've been looking forward to this month for quite some time.
Yes.
I'm a little partial to May, I must say. So May is Lupus Awareness Month.
Yes.
Listen, shout out to all the Lupies out there. I am one of you. We call each other Lupies.
I did not know that.
Yeah, we're Lupies
Okay.
together. Now, we gotta stick together, child, because this disease is so trash that you literally have to have friends who understand the foolishness. Okay. Community. And I guess that's with anything you're going through. But it's like when you know that you have somebody else to go through it with, it just kind of makes it more bearable. I think that's the best way to put it. Yeah. So yeah, I'm a loopy. And I'm so glad that y'all let me talk about this today.
Yes.
I just think awareness is important. So when y'all were like, do you want to say anything about lupus? I was like, yes, please.
Yes, because I mean, even though I work in the healthcare field, I know of patients, I take care of patients, but I still have questions. Like I still don't truly, understand it. And like, how is it even diagnosed? Like, tell us more. Just start. I'm just curious.
Let's take it from the top. You gotta say at the choir director church from the top. So I was diagnosed with lupus in 2011.
Okay.
It was my last year of pharmacy school. I was 23 years old, and in pharmacy school, the last year you go on like your clinical rotations, and so I moved to Tampa, Florida, and I went on rotations. And so I'm rotating to these different pharmacies and, doing all my work, and I'm exhausted, y'all. Like, I'm so tired. Like, usually after classes or after whatever, I would go out with my friends. Like, I was so tired. Like, I would come back to my little apartment in Tampa and fall out. And that's not how it's supposed to be your last year. You should be in these Tampa streets.
Right, because everything's a little bit more relaxed.
Right. We almost to graduation.
Right.
Like, we should be out here. And I was just so tired. And then one of my rotations, I noticed that my wrists were hurting. So the joints in my hands and my wrists were like really aching, and my knees were kind of aching, but more so, the biggest thing was my wrist, to the point where I remember going to CVS and getting like a brace to help me when I had to do my typing at my rotations, because my hands were hurting so bad, and it was so weird. So I make an appointment with my doctor. They don't find anything wrong in my initial labs, right? Then I keep having like these little infections, whether it's like a UTI or yeast infection, like back to back, which was really weird. We go to the doctor, they give you something for that, on and on. So it's just like one thing after another, until finally my mom's a nurse practitioner, so that probably helped. And she was like, you need to go see a rheumatologist, which is a specialist, to see if they can figure out what's going on. And I was like, okay. So mind you, I'm in Tampa, pretty much by myself, because my family is not in Tampa. I have some close friends who were on rotations with me, and I find a rheumatologist, make an appointment, they do blood work, and I go into the appointment, and the guy's like, you have lupus. That's the diagnosis.
So how did they do?
So they did blood work.
Oh, okay.
So he did blood and labs, and then my follow-up appointment, when I went to go find out what was going on, they put me on a medication called Celebrex. It didn't work for me. And then told me, you have lupus. Very matter-of-factly, no emotion. Mind you, I'm at the appointment by myself in Tampa. And it was just like, you have lupus. And I'm gonna be honest, y'all, at that point, it was my last year of pharmacy school, so I had heard of it before from a perspective of school, but I didn't know anything about it. Nobody in my family has this, nobody in my family that I knew had lupus. Like, it was just so random. And I remember, like, my knees were hurting, my joints were hurting, and so I called my mom. And I'll never forget that. I called my mom. She was at a nurse practitioner convention in Jacksonville, Florida at the time.
Oh, and you're in Tampa.
I'm in Tampa.
Okay.
I call mommy, I tell her, and she's like, okay. She jumps in her car and drives from Jacksonville to Tampa to me.
How far is it?
I don't know, hour, 4 to 5.
Yeah, please.
And I'm gonna tell y'all right now, my mother is not a driver like that. It's like, we go on road trip, daddy drives. So mommy jumped in her car. That was a big deal. Because now I'm realizing how serious it is.
I got you.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, then your mom stopped what she was doing.
Right, but I also remember calling her and saying, don't come. Because to me, that made it too real. And y'all know me, I'll be on I like everything to remain as normal as possible.
Yeah.
And so I remember saying, hey, don't come, because I still want to flow as myself. You know what I mean? I still wanted to be Stephanie. And she was like, okay. But she came anyway. So she came listening to you. Right. So I'm coming.
Yeah.
So I remember that night, two of my close friends, they're like, hey, we're going out tonight to this spot. And I was like, I want to go. So we were going to the club. I called mommy. Mommy's still on the road. And I'm like, hey, Ma, I'm going out to this spot tonight. You can, and she's like, I'm coming. Do what you want. She's going to let me still be 23.
Yeah.
But she's coming. So mommy comes, I'm dressed, I go to the club. The night of the diagnosis. Ain't even started meds yet, y'all. So I go to the club, we pull up in the club, we dancing, and I'll never forget it. That night of the diagnosis, we were in the club, when you drop it low in the club, right? I go to bend my knees, and my knees hurt. I couldn't even drop. And I was like, okay, we got a problem. That was diagnosis day. It was at the club in Tampa.
Had you had little, I guess now looking back on it presently, had you had little signs before and it just started like, oh, so that's what that was? Or had you put those two and two together?
Not before the couple months leading up to the diagnosis.
Okay.
There was nothing in my childhood or anything back in the day that would have been like, oh, maybe this was lupus. So it was just the joint pain and all of a sudden feeling super tired. And then finally, and that's why it's so hard to diagnose. Because everyone shows up differently. So there's three main types of lupus. There's discoid lupus, which affects your skin and your hair. There is systemic lupus, which can affect organ systems. And then, of course, I'm blanking on the third one. It's going to come to me in a minute.
Okay.
So there's these different levels and different types of lupus, but the most common, or drug-induced lupus, where there are certain medications that you can take that can trigger lupus in your body.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So those are the three main types. And so I was diagnosed with systemic lupus affecting organs. So anyway, that was diagnosis day. And mommy came on down. I remember the next day we went to Walmart and filled out a prescription. And I got on some prednisone, the steroid, and changed my game. Boy. And I'll never get that first dose of prednisone. I remember taking it and being like, whoa, nothing hurt.
Yeah.
It's like the magic poison. Truly it is. Because it can do so many other terrible things to your body, but you feel so good.
Right.
And it's 2021. And I'm still on prednisone.
Okay.
I have been on that ever since. I'm now on a very low dose of it. I think then I was maybe taking 20 to 40 to function.
Wow,
I'm on 5 now. So I'm still taking it. I've been very well controlled medication-wise over the years. I started on an amazing drug back in 2017 that has changed the game for me. And so I've been doing really well since then. But yeah, I've been living with this now. Oh my gosh, was it 2011? It's my 10-year anniversary.
Oh wow.
I was diagnosed. Whoa, I just thought of that right now. I was diagnosed June 2011.
Wow.
So I've been living with lupus for 10 years and we're still out here. Okay.
Listen.
So yeah.
I mean, I would have never known you to even have lupus or anything, especially if you're in pain, because you don't show it. You live your life to the fullest with this smile, and Stephanie can talk and and she loves her brunching and all, so it's just like you live life like I would have never. But how has it affected you? Because you don't show it on the outside.
Thanks, sis.
Girl, you gotta go.
Listen, I be out here, but it has its moments where I'm reminded, it's lupus. I still take medications every day.
Okay.
So whether I have a nice bag on or not, you're still gonna see my little pill pouch in there. I don't leave the house without that. I still have achiness here and there. Over the years, I've learned what triggers my inflammation and what can cause joint pain. Okay. I know that alcohol does that.
Okay. Wow.
So, right. Shocking for you, right? You would think, oh, so Stephanie's not going to drink. That's not the case. I will still have a cocktail, but I'm cognizant of how much to have.
Okay.
I'm cognizant of, I'm not gonna lie, I'll tell y'all the truth. I went to brunch this morning and I took some Tylenol before I went to brunch because I just knew I was gonna have a cocktail. I prepare myself accordingly, and I just limit it based off that, but I do know that that's a trigger. I've learned that dairy is a trigger. Another thing about me that you may not know is I love dessert. If I go out to eat, I look at the dessert menu before I order my meal so that I know what food to order. so that I'm not too full so that I can get dessert. That's how serious
It's serious.
Every time. So anyway, I know that milk and milkshakes, which is, I love milkshakes.
Yeah.
Milkshakes can trigger me and I may get kind of achy. My hands might start hurting, knees hurting. So I know what my triggers are. So day-to-day wise, to answer your question, I know that I have to take medicine every day. I have one shot that I have to take, I have to inject every week.
Okay.
At home, but I know that I have to take medicine every day. So that's the constant reminder, is even as I live my life and I go on and do things, I know that I have to have pills to function. That's just part of my story. That's what it is. I think the other thing day-to-day wise, when I was first diagnosed, I was doing okay after I started taking my medication, but there's one medication that I take, which is called Plaquenil, which became very popular this past year when COVID happened, because there was a lot of things in the news, and even your president at the time said to people, oh, if you take hydroxychloroquine or Plaquenil, you know, it may help with COVID. So that's how it became popular. But at first, when I was taking my Plaquenil, I wasn't seeing an effect of it. So I would take it and it wasn't like the prednisone. When I took the prednisone, it was like, boom, I feel it, good. I knew I wasn't gonna miss my prednisone, but I was missing that Plaquenil dose because I was like, oh, this isn't making a difference. So I stopped taking it. And I remember I was in Tampa. I stopped taking it. I was just taking it here or there or whatever, because I was like, oh, this isn't doing anything. And I washed my hair. And I washed my hair and my hair came out. Woo. And that was hard, because with my lupus, like you said, if you look at me, you would never know. But let me tell y'all something, when that hair went, that was really hard to lose my hair.
That's an outward expression.
That's an outward expression of what is going on. Now people are going to know something is going on.
Right.
So that was really hard, and I still deal with that being an issue.
Is that a side effect of the medication or of the disease of lupus?
That's an amazing question. So can be both.
Okay.
That in that case was a side effect of me not taking my Plaquenil.
Okay.
I later found out that I have discoid lupus, which is the lupus that affects your skin and hair.
So you have both.
So I have systemic lupus and discoid lupus.
Oh, so you can have
You can have both.
Both.
Yeah. So I deal with both of those, and that's why I often sometimes deal with hair loss. And even now, this is a unit.
Yes.
Stephanie keeps a unit.
She's a beauty.
I will keep a unit on, and that's what my first wig was the wig I wore to my college graduation.
Wow.
Was my first unit. I have a picture in my car before graduation in a hat, and I have no hair. I just had a unit that was made at the shop down in Tampa. I wish, oh my God, if I could find that shop, thank you. Because it was a shop that made wigs for women with breast cancer who had lost their hair.
Wow.
That's how I found it.
Yeah.
And I went in there, and oh, if I could find her. She brought me back, and her area had like coverings around it so nobody could see me.
Yeah.
And she made my first wig.
Wow.
So wherever you are, sis, God bless you.
Yes.
But I've been wearing units ever since. And I have times where my hair flows, and then I have times where I'll lose it again. But yeah, this is a wig now. So I think as far as how it affects me, the hair thing hit hard.
Oh, yeah.
And it still hits. If there's one thing that's on my dream board every year, is somebody who has these real full thick edges. Y'all see these thick edges on content. Like the thick edges, I would love thick edges. That's probably something that affects me outwardly. And that bothers me, but I've learned to live with it now. But I'm the unit. You go in my closet. If you go in my bathroom closet, shelves of hair.
Yes.
Yes, I keep some hair. So yeah, I've learned to adjust. It's been a transition. I will say no one in my family had lupus, so that was different. That's been different because nobody in the family has lupus. But over the years, I have found out as I've asked more questions that I have family members with autoimmune disorders, other autoimmune disorders. So I do think that there's some type of autoimmune trait on that side of my family that may link this to me. But yeah, nobody else has the diagnosis at all. So here we are, you know, we just take it one day at a time. I've learned that what makes me feel better is telling my story and meeting other people or people who find me, because I started doing like little videos on YouTube that said, hey, you know, this is what I'm dealing with, this is the medication I take. And like my favorite emails to get are people like, hey Stephanie, I just saw your video about your medication I'm taking it now too, thanks for posting the video. Like, I love that. I love that, because then makes me feel like what I'm going through is not in vain.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and that I'm like helping somebody.
Right.
Because it's just such a hard disease to figure out. Like, you'll talk to some people and they'll be like, oh, I tell people, oh, I have lupus, and they'll immediately just go down to like, oh my God, are you okay?
Right.
Because maybe they'll had an auntie or a family member who has maybe passed away or who cannot walk on their own. It just affects people so different. Like I told you, one of the forms of lupus is systemic lupus, which affects organs. See, I've never had any organ involvement, never heart, kidney, nothing like that. But you'll have some people who have kidney involvement and who are on dialysis at my age. Wow. You know what I mean? So it just affects everyone so differently, and you just never know. You know what somebody's dealing with. I think I said this last month when we were talking about infertility. Be kind to people,
right?
Because you just don't know what people are dealing with day to day, and everyone's is just affected so differently.
Right, it's so true. I mean, I kind of even compared, even being like I said in the healthcare. I had a patient and I told her about you. I'm like, I mean, this girl, I don't even see her hurting or nothing. I'm like, I don't know what she's taking or what she's doing. And she wanted to connect with you. And I think I had texted you like, hey, is it okay if I give her your Facebook or your Instagram?
Send me all the lupus people.
Because I was like,
Send
she
them
wanted
all.
to know. Yeah, I think before you, I only knew of what Tony Braxton and she looked, you know, fine.
Let me tell you, Tony really changed the game for us because she put it out there. I think her, Nick Cannon. I can't think of all the people. There was, I'm blanking on her name, but there's a few celebrities who have come out and said, hey, I have lupus, so it's brought it more to the forefront. Right. But I just feel like it's still not to the forefront enough for me.
It's not.
I just want more people to know. So a lot of people just deal with it just so differently.
Yeah.
So you mentioned.
Go ahead. No.
Okay. So you mentioned that it affects your organs in different ways. So we know that you're a mom.
Yeah.
And so do you know how it affects your uterus, or are there certain things that your doctors may advise against? Do they advise pregnancy? Do they advise against pregnancy? Like, what are some things they tell you regarding that?
Yeah, that was a thing when we started having the conversation. So one of my medications I take, you should not take while you are pregnant. So anytime if me and my husband want to have that discussion of, oh, let's try to have a child, that medication has to be stopped. So I remember like back 2019, me and my husband having the conversation of, oh, maybe we want to start trying or whatever. So I went to my doctor just to get testing to see how things were looking, and they checked what's called an AMH, which is a hormone that they check as it relates to fertility. And, you know, they ran my blood, they called me in, and they actually called me. And they were like, hey, Stephanie, come in, because we want to talk to you about your results. And they ended up telling me that my AMH was very low for someone my age, and that essentially it would be very difficult for me to get pregnant. And I remember I think my husband was out of town working. Yeah, he was. And I went to the appointment with my sister because I was just so nervous about what they were going to say. And I cried. Like I remember leaving there. I remember being at my friend's house and just crying to them like, oh my gosh, you know, this is going to be an issue, because I've been on meds now. At that point, it had been like 8 years. So who's to say what effect that all these medications that I've been taking over the years has had on my ability to have a child.
Right.
So that was October 2019. I was pregnant with my daughter in December of 2019.
What do you do?
So because my hard-headed self said, oh, okay, well, y'all say I can't get pregnant. Well, I don't know what I'm taking birth control for. So I stopped the birth control. And then I got pregnant right away.
Wow.
So that just tells you that God has the last say in that situation.
Yes.
But yeah, it's always a concern. And even now, as we are discussing moving forward with another child, or if we want to do that, I have to think about, okay, what med am I going to stop?
Right.
Or, you know, is it going to be more difficult the next time as it relates to my lupus? Luckily, my lupus has been very well controlled for a long time now. My whole pregnancy, I didn't have any flares, and I didn't even really get into what it is, but it's an autoimmune disease where your body is really attacking itself. Usually your immune system is in place to attack outside things that come in, but my immune system attacks my own tissue. So when it thinks it's protecting itself, it's really fighting me. And so I say that to say, with it being an autoimmune disease, you just don't know how it's going to respond next or what it's going to do next. So it's always in the back of my mind, like, okay, if we do try to have another child, what's going to happen? But you just don't know. You just got to take it one day at a time. And that's why I love talking to other people with lupus, because I get to hear somebody else's story or hear, oh, this worked for you or that's worked for you. But I haven't. Well, in lupus, sometimes what we have is called flares. And in flares, you can get a rash, or sometimes it's called the butterfly rash, because it happens right here in the middle and under your cheeks right here. So you'll get what's called a butterfly rash, or if you're flaring, your joints hurt or you're exhausted. And I haven't had a flare now since 2016.
Oh, wow.
So that's been a blessing. Yeah. And I triggered that myself. I went to homecoming. Child, I went down to Florida A&M University for homecoming. Was in these Tallahassee streets, staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning, drinking and doing everything that grown people do at homecoming. Go to college, kids. And came home and was in the hospital for a week with a flare.
Wow.
So that was my fault. So I know what to do to, to keep things at bay. But my last flare was 2016.
Wow, you mentioned.
So that's been a blessing.
You were diagnosed last year in pharmacy school. Do you think if you were diagnosed during school earlier on, would that have affected your outcome in pharmacy?
Like mental state? Or?
Just, would you
have finished
or... Because I do believe in God's timing, and, I just think...
One of the things with lupus that can trigger a flare, and I know that triggers a flare for me outside of, like I told you, certain medications or alcohol or whatever, is stress. And I do think that transition down to Tampa, to a new city I had never lived in by myself, in my last year of school, triggered stress. And I also wonder if that triggered the onset of the disease.
Right.
So I don't know, because pharmacy school was stressful.
Ooh, I bet.
So I don't know what would have happened, especially at that time. The medication that I'm taking now wasn't as popular or out and available, so I don't know how I would have responded if I had been diagnosed early. You know how to say the Lord don't give you more than you can bear. At that time, I got it just when I needed to get it. And I also don't discount the fact that I was diagnosed in June of 2011, and I started dating my husband in February, March of 2011. So that support system changed so much too.
Yes.
Like when that first, Quinn has never dated me without lupus, really.
Wow.
That first stay in the hospital, he stayed in the hospital.
Yes.
And so I don't discount that I've gotten this far without my support system. My mom and dad, my sister, my husband, game changers for me. So I'm definitely here because of that. But I just know that it's important to talk about it, because I tell people, and maybe they've never heard of the medications that I take, or they've never heard of lupus, or they've never heard of anyone doing well, or oh my gosh, sometimes when I tell people that I have a daughter, because some people have issues getting pregnant with lupus. So I'm here, y'all. If you know somebody, if you don't know somebody, send them to my page. I want to talk to you. If you have questions about my meds, I'm just like an open book as it relates to lupus. I can talk about that all day. Just because I think it's important to share and let you know you're not alone. It's not, don't Google it, honey, because it's not Google. Right, Google will terrify you, because that's what it did. Because even when I was diagnosed, my dad, he's not in healthcare. I remember my dad and my sister Googling lupus, and everybody was terrified at this point. So it's not a death diagnosis. It's literally a road bump. Like a bump in the road for you that you will go over and you will keep going. That's how I look at it.
That's a word.
It's something that you got to learn to live with, but you can learn to live with it. Everybody's lupus is different, I will say that, but I'm just here to tell my story and to let you know that it's going to be okay. I'm okay today, and I just take it one day at a time.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
and I just want to just say I commend you, and I appreciate that you are bringing awareness, and you also serve your community. Like when there's lupus walks, you invited us, and you raised, you know, you did the fundraiser and raised money for research. Like that is amazing that you are such an open book, and that you are a resource to others, because there's people out there that may feel alone, or they don't understand that how can they get
you came to my walk, man.
I did.
They were there.
You were.
I just appreciate
it. Was in the rain.
In the rain.
Would not have missed it.
I appreciate y'all support so much. It just makes such a difference. Like those walks, you know, we didn't get one last year because of COVID, but I hope it does come back at some point this year. But yeah, it's just, and those walks are a reminder of how far I've come too, because you get a chance to meet people who may like just diagnosed, and they have no idea, and they need to see me in my wig, you know, and be like, you know what, this is gonna be okay. You know, I'm here to share that. So thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Well, no, you are. She's in pageants.
Yeah, I'm
Look, she's doing nothing can stop, and that's just a word on its own. Your life story is a word on its own. That you know, like you said, it's a roadblock where you keep moving through.
You just go over the roadblock and carry on.
It's slow sometimes, but then eventually you get over it and you keep going.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Y'all know I don't like to miss nothing. And so, but sometimes I'm tired. Yeah. You know, like there are days where I just be like, hey, can't do it today. I need to rest. I gotta really check in with me, because I can't take care of my home, my husband, my child if I can't take care of myself. And some days I gotta call the clients and be like, I ain't got it today. You know, I do my best with what I have. But like I said, the Lord's not gonna put on me more than I can bear. So here we are, 10 years later. 10 year anniversary. I can't believe it. What did I tell my mother? Mommy, we've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah, shout out to Mom.
Shout out to Mom for driving down to Tampa.
Yes.
Even though I told her not to.
They're not going to listen.
They're not, because that's your mother. It's your mother.
Yeah. And you needed her even though you didn't think you needed her.
Right.
Yeah. So thanks y'all for giving us a chance to talk about this. If you have lupus, if you're living with lupus, if you know someone, please share this with them, or I want to hear from you, because you're not alone. It's just a little diagnosis in the road. That's all. So thanks, and we'll see y'all again soon.
Yes.
Bye y'all.
Bye.